Hello and welcome back to Unsolicited Film Reviews. I'm Zach Miller. Joining me as always is Martin Cooke, and today we're taking the show on vacation. So sit back, relax, and enjoy it because we're going to be discussing 10 of our favorite, if admittedly not the best, vacation movies. I think it's safe to say. But first, we need to acknowledge you, the audience. Our last podcast dealing with the year 1994 in film has received an amazing 1,200 views on YouTube so far. Wild times. So, Martin, how has your life changed now that you're an influencer?
Oh, yeah, I keep getting products sent to my door and everything. It's fantastic. No, we just want to take the chance to thank everybody who's out there. And obviously we've been doing this podcast in audio format for a little while, but we've only been on YouTube for a few months. And so it's nice to see a little bit of growth. And a lot of times what happens is you'll see, we'll go on, we'll see the viewership numbers, and then YouTube will cull a bunch of those numbers because they find out that they're bots. And while I welcome our robot overlords, it's nice to have some actual humans watching us. So we really appreciate it. And with that said, for anybody who's new to the podcast, please like, comment, subscribe. It really helps us out.
Absolutely. Do that thing down there with all the buttons and stuff. But we'd also like to thank the people that actually reached out and commented. That includes Truth Hurts 4500, Robzilla 730, and 44 Excalibur. Thank you. Keep it coming. But before we get into the vacation movies, as usual, we're going to do the box office weekly report. You got that for us, Martin?
Yeah, sure do. But yeah, first of all, so yeah, let's just off the top mention what we're doing. Yeah, you already said we're doing vacation movies, but yeah, it's almost summertime. We're trying to think of a good podcast to do, and so we figured this would be a good topic. So I got my beach towel here. You got all your beach stuff. We're ready for summer to hit, especially
Yeah. Well,
especially me up here in Canada after the long winter.
I've
So
been living in a place called Virginia Beach, so I got all the shit ready to go anyway. So it
Yeah,
wasn't that hard.
you're a little closer to the ocean than I am, although I've got a lake right out my window here, so
A Great Lake at
all
that.
all good. And with that said, I'm going to take off my sunglasses and turn down my sun here because it's a little bright. So there we go. All right, that's a little more reasonable. But yes, so box office for this past week. So what happened? Thunderbolts, once again, number one, made about 32.4 million on the weekend. It's now over 271 million worldwide. Number two, still holding strong, amazing, is Sinners at 22.1 million for the weekend, coming in now at over 284.7 million worldwide. It's just been a great success story for an original movie. At third, biggest movie of the year so far, Minecraft movie, an additional 7.7 million for the weekend. It's now over 909 million worldwide. It's definitely slowing down, but there is a chance it could get to a billion. So it would definitely be this year's first $1 billion movie. Fourth place was The Accountant 2, which made 6.7 million. And then fifth place, the only new arrival to the theaters this past that made it into the top five was Clown in a Cornfield, which only pulled in 3.6 million. But I do also want to shout out another movie, and that's a movie that we had mentioned before. It's an A24 movie. It's called Friendship with Paul Rudd and Tim Robinson because it opened limited this past week only in 6 theaters, and it averaged $75,000 per theater, which
That is
to put in
impressive.
context, the number one, the next highest, Thunderbolts, averaged 7,500 per theater. So that's an incredible haul. Now, look, sometimes these limited releases do get higher per theater averages, but still, I think it's a good sign. And unfortunately, I missed my chance. I realized too late that Toronto was actually going to be
Oh man.
one of those six cities. And by the
Well,
time I
yeah,
got
there are
getting
two
tickets,
Canadian dudes starring in it, so why wouldn't? Yeah.
yeah, but well, but anyway, no, Robinson's from Detroit, but
Oh, is he? Oh shit.
yeah, oh yeah, Detroiters, and
Apologies.
Paul Rudd's not Canadian either, although he seems like he should be. In any
Wow.
case,
Okay. Yeah.
uh, yeah, that's just incredible, and can't wait to see that movie.
All right. We only have three wide releases coming up this week, so I guess everybody's just kind of tamping things down and getting ready to release it on Memorial Day and past that when the summer box office season officially kicks off. So we have Final Destination Bloodlines, which is the latest in the long line of I don't know how many movies to date. But it's the last release for actor Tony Todd, who was basically a very prominent horror staple in the 90s and 2000s as well. He was Candyman and he just died pretty recently. And yeah, the cast released kind of a nice tribute to him, so that was cool. But
Oh, that's great.
is the movie gonna be any good? Probably not.
Probably not. Although I have to say, those movies always seem like they'd be a hell of a lot of fun to write. Because
Hmm.
basically, you're just coming up with the most ridiculous, convoluted ways that people can die. It's like, then he slips on this. Oh, but that's not the actual thing that kills him because that causes something else. It's like this Rube Goldberg of death. It's like, it just seems, they're so funny.
To
Anyway,
this day, when I'm driving and I'm behind a logging truck, and there are quite a few of those around these parts, I always switch lanes now because of that one scene. Like that's some trauma that I have from Final Destination. But I mean, it's a good practice because you never know when something's gonna fly off one of those trucks.
that's true.
So then we have Hurry Up Tomorrow. It stars The Weeknd, Jenna Ortega, and Barry Keoghan. Very interesting cast.
Yeah.
It's a thriller with very little. It's about a singer and some like the log line's basically like some weird shit happens to a singer. So
Yeah. And I've seen a trailer for this movie and still can't quite figure out what the hell it is. So
so it might turn out being pretty good, but you know,
you never know. Yeah.
not good marketing though. And then last we have The Ruse, which is another thriller about a caregiver in a remote seaside home for caring for a sketchy elderly woman. Yeah, that's
All
basically all
right.
we got there.
Yeah. Probably won't be jumping out to see any of those, but
Nah.
I might see one or two of them eventually.
So let's get into vacay mode, shall we?
Let's do it.
First up, we have The Heartbreak Kid. It's a 2007 comedy from the Farrelly brothers. And if, like, most of you, if not all of you, watched the last episode, they did Dumb and Dumber. So, uh, comedy legends. It stars Ben Stiller, Michelle Monaghan, and Malin Ackerman with support from Jerry Stiller, Rob Corddry, Carlos Mencia, and Danny McBride. It's a remake of the 1972 movie of the same name. Ben Stiller is kind of just like a down on his luck, unlucky in love dude who, after marrying a girl he's only known for 6 weeks, realizes he's made a huge mistake. On their honeymoon in Mexico, Stiller's bride turns out to be a complete nightmare, unless you're really into dicking and jackhammering. But to make things worse, he starts to fall for another woman at the resort. Farrelly Brothers hijinks ensue. It was a box office hit, but like most Farrelly Brothers comedies, critics mostly despised it. Rolling Stone named it the worst remake of 2007. So, Martin, are you with the audience or the critics on this one?
I'm kind of with the critics on this one. Rewatching it this past week, it's a pretty bad movie, really. I mean, a lot of the Farrelly Brothers stuff, some of the comedy really lands and is funny, and then other bits of the comedy are just don't land at all. And they have some typical gross out stuff in there that seems completely unnecessarily, like. Yeah, I don't even want to mention it. But let's just say
Oh,
they
my
try to go.
pearls.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just an authentic Mexican, or I don't know what it's supposed to be, a festival or something. And behind the curtain, there's some stuff that we don't really need to talk about. I will say the main thing with this movie, though, is that I'm not really sure which character we're supposed to be empathizing with throughout this,
Mm.
because I mean, basically, Ben Stiller's character is a pretty shitty character when you think of it. I mean, maybe Michelle Monaghan's character, but it's not really her story. So it's not, the audience isn't really empathizing with her. So I find just watching it, there's nobody really for me to latch onto. You sit back and enjoy the humor, but yeah, that's about it. I will say it's kind of crazy to see a movie where Danny McBride is sort of the voice of reason. Like he's the one who kind of sees through Ben Stiller's character, and he's a bit of a dick as he always is, but he's kind of right in this movie, and that's not something you don't see. The other thing though is it's just nice to see Ben Stiller and his father acting together,
Mm.
which is kind of fun. Ben and Jerry. Oh yeah, Ben and Jerry. I never made that connection before somehow. I don't know how I never made that connection,
You
but
heard it here first.
yeah, Ben and Jerry. Ben and Jerry's. So yeah, so that's kind of fun. But overall, yeah, it's this isn't a great movie in my opinion.
See, comedy's the most subjective art form there is, probably.
Yeah.
And if something tickles you and makes you laugh, then it does, and if it doesn't, then it doesn't. So, it's not by any means a prestige movie, but I laughed out loud hard multiple times rewatching this, and
Okay.
I wasn't even under the influence of any substances, so don't even have that excuse. I Yeah, anytime Jerry Stiller's on screen in anything, he's just a gem.
He is. Yeah.
Absolute
Or
gem.
was. Yeah.
Yeah, RIP. But yeah, he's a national treasure. He always will be. And I think this is Carlos Mencia's best work.
Mm. Yeah.
He notoriously went and was one of the top five comedians in the world at one point, and then he got kind of booted out of the industry because it turned out he was stealing jokes. So he got blacklisted and really haven't seen him since. But in this one, where it's like scripted and he's just kind of this zany Mexican maitre d kind of, yeah, I thought he was really well cast. And
Yeah.
yeah, so and then yeah, like you said, Danny McBride, he's been playing the same character for 20 years now,
Kind of
but
has.
god damn if he doesn't make it work for him.
It's true, yeah. And then, Danny McBride with short hair in this. This movie's what from 2007, so this is
Yeah.
18 years old. This movie. Also have to say, I mean, Michelle Monaghan just basically doesn't age because she
Hmm.
was in, she was just in The White Lotus latest season. 18 years later, also in a beach resort, and she looks a little older, but not much. So, good on her. But yeah, as I said, there are some funny moments in this, no question. But overall, it's not. I don't think it's great.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't think it's a great movie by any means, but it was fun. So
So here's a question then we should ask ourselves for all these, although the answer is definitely going to be no for a few. Is this a vacation you'd like to go on, Zach?
am I Ben Stiller?
Sure. Yeah, let's put you in the main character shoes.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, why not? I
yeah,
mean,
you
you
get
go,
that,
you
that.
meet with a crazy fun family, you hang out, yeah. The
Yeah, I
whole
mean,
awkward lying to your wife stuff, maybe not so much, but
yeah, I mean, the worst thing that happens to him really is getting the man of war on his back, and that looks super painful. But
yeah.
to trade that off for that particular experience, yeah, I'd take that.
All right, so next up, we've got Glass Onion. And so this is a 2022 murder mystery by Ryan Johnson, a follow-up to his 2019 hit Knives Out. This was a Netflix movie, so didn't really have much of a box office. It was nominated for a screenwriting Oscar for Ryan Johnson. It stars Danielle Craig, Edward Norton, Kate Hudson, Janelle Monáe, Dave Bautista, a whole bunch of other people. And I really like this is so it's 2022. It was set during COVID, and so it's a COVID holiday. So these people all fuck off to a super rich person's private island and have themselves a nice holiday in the middle of the pandemic. Um, I love this movie. I don't think it's quite as good as Knives Out, but we'll save Knives Out for maybe if we do a podcast about murder mysteries or something. Um, and look, it's low hanging fruit, but all these kind of the stereotypes of people that he threw into this movie, they're just so easy to hate because they're just such awful people. And so yeah, they're easy targets. But I do love the send up of all these types of people. Um, there's a totally random Ethan Hawke cameo at one point when he's in it for basically like a minute for no reason. Um, and the other thing about this movie, the part about this movie that always sticks in my head, well, more and more these days, I find myself kind of thinking of it, is the point in the movie when Daniel Craig's character Benoit Blanc says, "Oh, it's so dumb." And Kate Hudson's like, "Oh, it's so dumb, it's brilliant." No, it's just dumb. I just, yeah, that's a thought that runs through my head a lot these days.
Yeah, so I love Daniel Craig as Benoit Blanc.
Yeah,
His little foghorn leghorn routine is just masterful. And while it's cartoonish, it also fits in this world just because it is it is kind of a serious whodunit, but there's also lots of comedy thrown in there, and there's obviously a niche for whodunits with a comedic angle, but
yeah,
still it's very smart and complicated without being convoluted, which is a very important distinction, I think. And I hope Ryan Johnson and Daniel Craig keep making these films for the rest of their careers.
yeah. Well, there is another one that's
Yeah,
already, I think filming's pretty much wrapped on it.
yeah.
And so I'm not sure when it's coming out, but yeah, that can't wait because I've loved both these movies, Knives Out and then this one.
And the best whodunits, and this includes the original Knives Out, are ones that get better on a rewatch, where you're like, oh, of course, there's one clue. How did I miss that?
Yeah,
And I'm one of those guys that doesn't really try, when I'm watching a mystery movie, I don't really try to figure out the mystery because especially if it's a really good one, because I'm just enjoying the interplay between the characters and the how they all interact and the plot and stuff. So I'm just generally like, oh, okay, it was that guy at the end. I'm not like trying to finger the murderer as we go. So
yeah.
it makes for a less stressful mystery watching experience. But that's what makes these movies so entertaining, though, is because it doesn't really matter who the killer is at the end because the movie, all the lead up is just so good.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just all these ridiculous characters playing off of each other throughout the whole movie.
And then yeah, so please keep making more of these after even the third one. I will
Yeah,
watch Benoit Blanc if he's 80 years
yeah.
old. So
And despite, going and hanging out with objectively terrible people, this location looks amazing. I would definitely go on this vacation.
as would I. Oh yeah, could you imagine the stories you'd be able to tell after this something like this?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, wild. So next up we have I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. It is a 1998 slasher movie. It's a sequel to I Know What You Did Last Summer, which came out only a year earlier. So the studio was like, let's keep this ball rolling. The only returning cast members are Jennifer Love Hewitt, Freddie Prinze Jr., and Muse Watson, mostly because everybody else was killed off in the first one. But joining the new cast are Brandy, Mekhi Phifer, and Bill Cobbs, who never heard from Bill Cobbs ever again after this, I don't think. So we pick up a year after the first one. No, you do not need to see the first movie to understand the second one. The backstory is told in excruciating detail with exposition throughout the film. So Love Hewitt plays Julie James, a college student suffering from PTSD after she and her friends killed a guy and then suffered the vengeance of the Gordon's fishermen.
Although not quite killed him.
Yeah, that part's so complicated because
They kept saying they killed him, but the whole plot of the first one is that they didn't actually kill him.
yeah.
Coming, so anyway, it's all very weird.
Yes. So Brandy, Julie's new bestie, just wants to just wants Julie to forget about her past and have a good old time. They win a radio contest and get a free trip to the Bahamas. Mekhi Phifer and some lame ass dude named Will tag along. Freddie Prinze Jr., Hewitt's erstwhile lover, would rather pretend to be a fisherman than spend a week in the Bahamas fucking Jennifer Love Hewitt in her prime. Probably the most unrealistic part of this film, other than him playing a dude who's a blue collar fisherman with perfectly gelled hair at all times. So once the four vacationers arrive in the Bahamas, they're told that a massive hurricane is on the way, and their staff are picked off, I should say, one by one for whatever reason. Look, the plot is overly convoluted, especially for a slasher movie. All the twists and turns fall flat. Freddie Prinze arrives just in time to save the day. Hewitt and Brandy survive. It's a fun time though.
Yeah, this one's a pretty terrible movie. I mean, there's parts of it that are fun. I will say, I can't remember if I must have seen this, but I didn't remember a lot of the details. And so the whole thing that kicks it off with like them winning this trivia contest, um, until you find out later on that that's part of the trick. That annoyed the hell out of me the whole time because they win the contest and by answering a trivia question is what is the capital of Brazil? And they say Rio and they win the contest. And the whole movie, I was like, what? That's not the fucking capital of Brazil. Turns out that's part of the plot. But
Brasilia.
throughout the whole movie, that was annoying the hell out of me. I'm like, how could the movie get that wrong? It didn't. But you're right. I mean, it's convoluted, but at the same time, kind of tired and predictable. It seems like a lot of this movie was just an excuse to put Jennifer Love Hewitt in a bikini, which okay, whatever. You could have done that in much better ways. Um, I think that you mentioned Bill Cobb's character. It's funny. I think his character and Freddie Prinze Jr.'s character in this movie are sort of an amalgam of the Scatman Crothers character from The Shining.
That I would never have come up with that point if you gave me 1,000 views, but continue. I like this.
But yeah, because he's like the old grizzled caretaker taker, and then like the person who's coming from a long way away and going through all these different things to try to get back there to save them. And they just were like, yeah, let's split that off into two different characters for some reason. Including Bill Cobb's character basically getting killed very quickly, kind of like what happens to Scott Van Crothers. Um, and look, I know this is a horror slash slasher movie, but they didn't make nearly enough of the tropical setting.
Mm.
Um, Obviously, a lot of it's dark because that's kind of what horror movies are. But it's, as you say, it's a hurricane, it's raining the whole time. So for our purposes, obviously, it's a vacation movie. They're on vacation in a tropical setting, and yet most of it's like inside and dark and rainy. So, come on, they could have done better than that. As you mentioned, it was put out a year later, and I think it really shows that it was rushed. Like Kevin Williamson, who's the creator of this and Scream and all the other things, he didn't write this movie.
Hmm.
Um, and didn't have that much to do with it because the studio was basically just like, "Oh, this is a hit. We need to make more money," and it kind of shows on the screen, I think.
Yeah, just from the opening sequence with Jennifer Love Hewitt walking into the confessional booth, it tries to be so much more grandiose than this movie actually is, which I just found hilarious. I was cracking up as she was walking into the church and
It was
just
pretty.
just had the big doughy eyes and I'm so innocent. And in that same vein, Hewitt does not look like a traumatized, sleep-deprived person who killed a guy or maybe not killed, okay, didn't kill, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Lost half of her friends to a serial killer.
Yeah,
She's tan, she's toned, her hair and makeup are flawless. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. It looks like she hasn't skipped a day at the gym. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I thought Mekhi Phifer basically stole the show, at least out of the main cast. He was corny as fuck, but he at least he has like that confidence and charisma to kind of get us from scene to scene. But
Yeah. They needed somebody to take over the kind of brash, arrogant role from Ryan Felipe in the first
yeah,
movie, and yeah, Mekhi Phifer actually does. You're right. He does a really good job of it.
but of course, Jack Black's in this as well for 5 or 6 scenes. It's not just a cameo. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I think he's uncredited actually,
he is. Yeah, good point.
which
Yeah.
is so weird. And yes, super young Jack Black. That's kind of funny. That's almost worth watching just to see a really young Jack Black who's just a weed dealer, basically.
Yeah, yeah, his death scene is the best one out of the entire movie for sure.
Yeah.
He's like, no, seriously, don't do that, dude. Yeah, that was gut busting. Uh, I was young and dumb enough when this came out to fall for the easiest to figure out plot twist of all time, which of course was the whole Rio Brasilia type thing. There was no Wikipedia, so I just took it for granted because the writers took it for granted that their audience didn't know meteorology or geology or geography, I should say. Yeah, geography.
Yeah, good point.
So Hewitt's probably one of the last classic final girls as far as like between the
Yeah.
70s, 80s, 90s, the heyday of the slasher film. And yeah, really haven't had any of that since, probably because it was all so played out by then. And this is kind of the death of the slasher genre.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because Kevin Williamson also obviously wrote Scream, which is kind of a parody of slasher films.
Hmm.
Whereas I know what you did last summer, and then this are more just straight ahead slasher films. There's none of the kind of the winking and the nodding that you get in Scream. And even though this came out afterwards, he actually wrote it before he wrote Scream,
Ah, okay.
and then couldn't get it made. So when you see that, you're like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. That this was his kind of first attempt, and then he's like, no, I need a good twist on the genre, and then Scream became successful, and then when it was successful, the studios were like, oh yeah, okay, what else you got? Let's put out other things you have.
Yep, studios are nothing if not predictable.
Yes, absolutely.
What's next?
All right, so next we move into a movie that is somewhat less predictable in terms of well, it wasn't a big studio that made it, and that's Little Miss Sunshine. Now, I'll be honest, I suggested this movie when we came up with it, and upon rewatch, it is kind of a vacation, but it's not quite as much of a vacation as I thought it was.
Mm.
So maybe it doesn't even qualify here, but I'd suggest it. And it's basically it's more of a road trip than it is vacation because it's a road trip with a specific goal, and they're not kind of stopping along the way. But it does kind of fit a lot of the same tropes as like the family vacation movies. So I think it kind of works. Anyway, this was a 2006 movie from writer Michael Arndt and directors Jonathan Dayton and Valerie Faris. Stars Steve Carell, Tony Collette, Greg Kinnear, a bunch of other people. It did pretty well at the box office for a small film, like over 100 million, but not great. But it really did well with critics. Like it was nominated for 4 Oscars, including Best Picture. It won for 2, including Best Supporting Actor and Best Screenplay for Arndt. So very successful movie in that right. And yeah, this basically is just a family road trip movie. So it's they're all people with their own problems, a lot of them very serious problems. And yet by far the biggest asshole of the group is the Greg Kinnear character, I think, which is kind of funny as the dad because he's so judgmental of everybody else. Um, and the movie all ends up, for anybody who hasn't seen it, at a beauty pageant for their young, whatever she is, 11-year-old daughter. And not to spoil it too much for anybody who hasn't seen it, but this movie's been around for almost 20 years now. They basically make a mockery of this beauty pageant, and good on them because those child beauty pageants are creepy as fuck. What are your thoughts on Little Miss Sunshine, Zach?
All right, so I've always appreciated this movie as being extremely well written and funny, well, like great chemistry between the entire family of actors, whether it's Paul Dano, Alan Arkin, Abigail Breslin, just as you already mentioned the top, but I've also had problems with the subject matter and not just the creepy ass child pageantry, but as you said, and then that's a really good setup for my main point about this entire movie. Greg Kinnear is depicted as being the asshole of the entire group, but he really is the only sane one and the one that's just trying to keep the his family unit together. And especially he's portrayed as the villain mostly in the diner scene with the ice cream,
Yeah,
and where he very crassly but kind of and very uh he's not being attentive to Abigail Breslin's emotional needs, but he does just state the fact that, if you're gonna try to be a model, you might not want to have ice cream for breakfast. And he's just like shot down by the heroin addicted pervert that is Alan Arkin. And we're supposed to like Alan Arkin and praise him, and he is a very charismatic character. But if
yeah.
you take a step back and put that into like if that was a real life scenario, Greg Kinnear is completely in the right. And like Greg Kinnear, I mean, Alan Arkin's like, yo, no, the ice cream you want. I like big girls and blah, 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 blah. So I've always just kind of had an issue with the message that this movie sends at the end of the day, especially since they just become renegades. And I do like that they upend the whole beauty pageant thing because, yeah, fuck that, the child beauty pageant.
Yeah, yeah.
But the fact that they just kind of steal the trophy and run off, it's funny, but it's I think it's taken in a kind of weird context.
Well, I think I'll disagree a little bit because I think the ending message and where the Greg Kinnear character goes, I think in a way it's sort of his arc is the main one that drives the movie. I mean, they
Hmm.
all kind of have little arcs, but his arc is from a person who the reason why he's so dislikable at the beginning isn't that he's trying to keep everybody together and everything. I would say Tony Collette's character is trying to do that as well, and take care of people. It's that he's so judgmental, and
Hmm.
to the point that his daughter thinks that he's not going to love her if she isn't a quote unquote winner, if she's a loser, because he only divides people into winners and losers and all this kind of stuff. And it takes the whole movie for him to kind of learn that he's got to show outward unconditional love for his family. And so I think that is more where the movie lands, and I think um, that's the good point. But I kind of see where you're coming from. But I think yeah, I think it's more about him being judgmental than and then about the other things that he's kind of, as you say, he's not really sensitive to his daughter.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point, and I can definitely see both angles. It's just I think so many people are completely in Alan Arkin's camp that
Right. Yeah,
that
no,
Greg.
Alan Arkin's character is not a great person either.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so
Yeah.
I just think I think a lot of people overlook Greg Kinnear's arc, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
still even walking out, they're saying that he's the asshole. But you're right, you're completely right that he does have the main arc of the entire film.
Right.
So then we are switching gears a little bit to Broken Lizard's Club Dread. It's a 2004 comedy slasher film starring the comedy troupe Broken Lizard of Super Troopers fame. Joining the fun are Bill Paxton, Brittany Daniel, and MC Gainey, who I always like whenever he pops up in a movie. It follows the staff of a tropical resort called Pleasure Island is run by a Jimmy Buffett-esque character by the name of Coconut Pete, played by Paxton. And they get picked off one by a mysterious killer. That's it. That's the plot. Simple but effective. It was both a financial and critical flop, however, but that's comedy for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Broken Lizard guys, Jay Chandrasekhar and all the rest of them, Super Troopers probably made some money. They've never had, super major hits. They've more been kind of underground successes in terms of they've got some real dedicated fans. Um, I think this movie is pretty funny. Like I much prefer this movie to the first one that we talked about, even though it's also ridiculous, and so I don't quite know why I prefer this one. But I just found some of the humor, yeah, again, it's comedy, not all the humor lands. But like Bill Paxton's Coconut Pete character is so funny. Like it's such a funny riff on the like gloriously absurd person that was Jimmy Buffett. Um, Fun fact though, they actually screened this movie for Jimmy Buffett. And I guess Buffett loved it so much that he wanted to play some of the songs, some of the absolutely crazy songs from this movie at some of his concerts. So that's kind of funny. Um, so yeah, I wouldn't say that it's a great movie, but it has some really funny moments. And basically, it's a parody of slasher films, like right down to the end, when the person just keeps coming back and attacking them. And then at the very last scene, it's like his decapitated legs that are like swimming after them and stuff. Like it's absurd, but it's funny. And it's nice to see Kevin Heffernan play a hero in this one because in almost all their movies he's like the bumbling idiot.
Hmm.
So it's nice for him to get a change of pace in this one.
Yeah, Super Troopers and Beer Fest both get a lot of play, especially with the college crowd. But Club Dread and the Slam and Salmon are my favorite Broken Lizard movies. Like,
Okay.
so I was never a big fan of Super Troopers, but yeah, this is probably my top. maybe 20 comedies of all time,
Oh
just because
wow. Okay. Yeah. I wouldn't
I
have
think
it
it,
that way, but
I think it just totally holds up after 21 years, and it upends every slasher trope, while at the same time being kind of an interesting slasher in itself because you got the audience wondering who the killer is, and it's not telegraphed at all.
no,
And
no, it isn't.
it has the thing where like everybody's a suspect. I love like the slow-mo when everybody's even the slightest slight by any character against every other character gets like the slow-mo treatment, and then you have the
Yeah.
darting eyes of the characters like, oh, you won't sell me drugs? Bang! Oh, you're having a threesome in the woods? Bang! Yeah, that's just great comedy. Um, and again, it's also kind of an homage to like early 70s to late 80s B movie comedy. I mean B movie horror slashers like Sleepaway Camp and things like that that are all like funny in their own right. But
Yeah.
yeah, Bill Paxton was awesome in this. The joke that always gets me the most is when the gymnast gets called Penelope instead of Penelope because the guy is from, I forgot, Costa Rica, Venezuela, whatever.
Costa
But
Rica, I think. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, he just grabs her boob and he's like, "Oh, Penelope, what a beautiful name." Another thing is the live action Pac-Man maze was funny, but it was made hilarious by the score, acting, and cinematography because everything was played totally straight by the
Yeah.
actors.
Yeah.
But because they were in fucking fruit costumes, like pineapple banana costumes, it was just gut busting because they're all like, "Oh no, we need to follow the banana, and you don't get it. Everybody's dying around us." And again, back to MC Gainey, the Quinn from Jaws, like tough guy monologue
Yes.
was hilarious.
Yeah.
And my favorite line of his, what you shit in the one apple pie that knows how to shit back.
Yeah, I remember that line. Like it's so funny because it really doesn't make any sense.
But it's something like in the 80s, somebody would say that like if like Arnold or Stallone said
Yeah.
that, you'd be like, oh man, that's so
Yeah.
badass.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again,
Yeah.
playing everything so straight was great. Like when Putman has to run away with the dreadlock bag on his head, he's just running through the woods with that thing.
Yeah.
And then of course Putnam's heroic demise when he's just flinging when he's hitting tennis balls at the killer with no effect
No
whatsoever.
effect.
He's like, Jenny, run! I'll see you. And then Kevin Efferdin's like oh, thank you, Putnam. He's like, fuck off.
Yeah. Moments after calling her a Piccadilly whore or something like this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's,
And then
it's
when they're going off in the woods, and he's like, another line that just tickles me pink. He's like, piss on that. I'm bringing a machete.
yeah, yeah,
The way he pronounces machete. Oh, God, yeah. So great, just great romp.
yeah, yeah. It's a pretty funny if you just want, yeah, like a mindless comedy to throw on sometime. Yeah, it's a pretty funny one. And that brings us to, after Coconut Pete and a movie set in basically a boozy place, that brings us to our drink break.
Yeah.
So today we thought an obvious one would have been Pina Colada to Pina Colada Berg. Um, but neither Zach nor I really mess with coconut. So we don't like coconut. So
Mhm.
we instead decided to go with a Mai Tai, which is also a good kind of beach vacation kind of drink.
Or as
So
they say, and I still know what you did last summer, a my motherfucking tie.
my motherfucking Tai. So there are a lot of different recipes out there for Mai Tais. And I'll be perfectly honest, I've usually ordered them much more than I've made them, but found some decent recipes. So first thing you're going to want to start with is a little bit of light rum. And so you want 1.5 ounces of that. So 1.5 of the light rum. Then you want 3/4 of an ounce of orange curacao. Now, I couldn't actually find orange curacao in the liquor store near me. So I'm just using triple sec instead, which
Hmm.
is they're similar. Curacao has different kind of flavor profile, but they're both orange based liqueurs. So 3/4 of an ounce of that. Um, 3/4 of an ounce of lime juice comes next.
Check.
That says freshly squeezed. So there we go. Little freshly squeezed lime juice. Now, a lot of recipes will call for this, which, if anybody can see, it's, I had no idea how to pronounce it. Apparently, it's orgeat.
Hmm.
Um, and it's basically, it's a kind of syrup. It's a kind of simple syrup. Um, but it's very hard to find. So you can use other, just a regular simple syrup instead of it, or you can do something else to add a little sugar. You can also add a little like pineapple juice or something. I'm
That's what I'm
probably
doing
gonna
right
do,
now.
yeah, I'm probably gonna do both. So or add my half an ounce of orgeat, but I think I also am gonna cut this with a little bit of pineapple juice. And then you also need some dark rum. So it's both light rum, but then only half an ounce of dark rum. Yeah. So that's the thing there. So there's the half an ounce of dark rum. So, and then as I said, yeah, if you want to mix it up, add a little bit of juice of something else. I'm gonna just add like half an ounce of uh of a little pineapple orange there. So
Right. Just for flavor and to differentiate, I'm gonna throw a maraschino cherry in mine
yeah, I like that.
and garnish with a little bit of fresh pineapple.
So there we go. Put that on there. Make sure that's tight, but not too tight, because sometimes these things are hard to get off. And then mix it up. I just don't want to. Oh, glass. That was a nice, delicious, refreshing vacation Mai Tai.
Cheers.
Great. Good stuff.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
tasty.
that is damn good.
Yep.
Alrighty.
So, with that, we will move on. And so the next movie,
Something very decidedly not tropical, but
yeah, very not tropical at all. But since the reason why we're doing this topic today for on the channel today is that it's just about to be summer vacations for everybody, I thought I'd throw in a movie here that is about kids on summer vacation, and that is Stand By Me, which is 1986 movie from director Rob Reiner, written by Reynard Gideon and Bruce Evans, based on a novella by Stephen King. This stars Will Wheaton from Star Trek fame, River Phoenix, Corey Feldman, and Jerry O'Connell. It was actually the 13th highest grossing movie of 1986 and was nominated for one Oscar for adapted screenplay. And to me, this is basically the perfect encapsulation of summer vacations in North America in the days before the internet. You just went off with your buddies, trying to find adventures, doing whatever the hell you wanted. And it's also a movie lost to time. I mean, not only is it an old movie now, it's in 1986, but it's set in a small town, and small towns like this are kind of dying out across North
Mhm.
America. Like it's these days, it's all like city, suburb, or country. Um, but this kind of it's really a time capsule, almost a moment in time of what summer vacations were. When I was a kid, me and my buddies, we'd get on our bikes and we'd just go yeah, and we'd be gone all day just doing all sorts, never found a dead body like in this movie, but this even though this is obviously set in the late 50s and it's an older movie, it kind of reminds me of some of those childhood days as a kid in the summer. So I think one of the things I think it's a fantastic movie. One of the things that makes this movie so great is the dynamic between the kids. I
Mm.
think like the four of them, they all have kind of their defined roles within the friendship, and it all makes sense. And we all kind of knew people like that in little friend groups. Like River Phoenix's character is the leader because he's the toughest, but Will Wheaton's character is the smartest and is kind of the one subtly directing everything behind the scenes. Then, Feldman's character is this really messed up kid, but he's super loyal, so the kids are friends with him. And then O'Connell's character is the one the rest of them kind of make fun of, right? He's a little overweight. He's got no chill at all. He tries too hard. He's always trying to impress the others. But again, he's part of their group. Um, this is obviously because it's kids. It's a coming of age story, and yeah, I just love this movie. What about you, Zach?
Yeah, yeah, I agree with those points. It's really the quintessential and ultimate slice of life movie.
Mm,
The stakes are fairly low, even though the kids are threatened with murder multiple times by Kiefer Sutherland's
yeah,
character, who plays a really good bully in this one.
it does.
But still, like, so Keith Sutherland probably older than his character that he's playing, but he's playing at least like a 17, 18-year-old guy, I would assume. And he's running around like threatening these 11, 12-year-old kids, like, which is what bullies do, but you'd expect like a 15-year-old to have that kind of behavior, not not somebody who is as old as Kiefer.
Yeah,
But anyway, yeah, he provides the antagonist and most of the high tension drama. But yeah, other than that, kind of low stakes, as you said, coming of age, loss of innocence, small town white kids in the 50s. Really made me think about the potential that River Phoenix had as an actor before
yeah,
his untimely death outside of the Viper Club on Sunset Boulevard. And even of course, Joaquin feels the wounds. Obviously, he was his brother, but he was the number one guy that he thanked when he won his Oscar for Joker a couple years ago. Uh, Interesting sidebar though, the especially when the end theme came on with the song "Stand by Me," it
mm.
reminded me of Euphoria and the scene with Angus Cloud and Maud Apatow. And did you watch Euphoria?
I only actually watched the first season.
Okay. So yeah,
Um,
there's a scene with Angus Cloud and Maud Apatow where they just sit on the couch and bond over this movie. And when the credits roll and the song comes on, they both start crying. And it's probably the sweetest scene in an extremely dark and cynical show. And it, again, like kind of a parallel to River Phoenix, it reminds me that Angus Cloud could have been an absolute superstar, and it's such a shame that he died at such an early age as well. So, yeah, not a
yeah,
lot of happy feelings coming away from this movie, but uh, very nostalgic, very relatable to anybody that grew up. As you said, pre-internet. Yeah, this is
yeah,
how kids grew up. So, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and as you said, it's like this movie is told for anybody who hasn't seen it. It's told kind of as a flashback by Richard Dreyfuss, who's playing an older version of Will Wheaton's character, and he's a writer, and he's telling the story of his childhood. And the why of why he's telling the story in that moment, it comes at the end. You find out, and it is such a gut punch and so heartbreaking. Um, but it's yeah, it's great. There's one conversation in this movie that rewatching it, it's a conversation between River Phoenix's character and Will Wheaton's character, and it so reminded me of a conversation from Good Will Hunting, because it's where Will Wheaton's kind of like, oh, I'm gonna stick around this small town. I want to hang out with you guys. And
Mm.
River Phoenix is basically telling him,
Oh,
no, 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 you've got the talent. You got to get the hell out of here. You're going to be a great writer someday. You've got to go. And it's so reminiscent of that conversation in Good Will Hunting between Ben Affleck's character and Matt Damon's character, when Affleck's character is like, if you're still here and in 15 years, fuck you, because you're the one with the talent to get out of here and get. And so it's so reminiscent that as I was watching it, I'm like, oh, I wonder if that's where Affleck and Damon kind of got the idea for that scene.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, really good film, definitely. And then we have another critically acclaimed one, and we're going all the way back to 1953 with Roman Holiday. It's a, like I just said, 1953 rom-com, not just starring, but introducing the world to Audrey Hepburn along with Gregory Peck, who had a film career, but introducing to Audrey Hepburn. It was written by Dalton Trumbo, but since this was the height of McCarthyism and Trumbo was on the Hollywood blacklist, he wasn't properly credited until pretty recently. I think it was like 2004 or something like that, where they finally made the reprint of the film and added his name to the credits.
And gave his widow the
Mm.
Oscar that he rightly should have won for it because it won for best rating.
Hmm. And Hepburn won an Oscar for Best Actress. Hepburn is Princess Anne, a royal from an unnamed European country who escapes her handlers in Rome to have a wild night out with an American journalist played by Peck. Both characters pretend to be something they're not, and that provides the dramatic tension here. Hijinks ensue, but they do not wind up living happily ever after when she recognizes that she has a duty to her people, which is kind of a okay. Yeah, full disclosure, my first time seeing this movie,
Oh wow. Okay.
My first time seeing an Audrey Hepburn movie all the way through. I've never seen Breakfast at Tiffany's,
Okay. Okay.
so I'll let you give your
Well,
initial
yeah,
thoughts and then.
yeah. First time seeing this movie, I mean, Audrey Hepburn is just so damn charming
Mm,
in this movie. But I think this is really a great vacation movie because it is a vacation in the best sense. It
mm-hmm.
is Audrey Hepburn getting away from all the characters, all the cares in the world that her character has, even if, she is a princess. Trumbo and the movie does a great job in the beginning of showing kind of the mundanity of her day-to-day life and how kind of constricted and constrained she feels. Where it doesn't seem sort of trite. It seems like, oh yeah,
No,
this
yeah.
is this is a person who this would be kind of terrible actually, and she's on the verge basically of a mental breakdown, and yeah, so she goes off. So in that way, it really is a vacation. She goes off, she forgets about everything. She's able to kind of calm down, decompress, enjoy herself, and then come back and take up her duties again. That is the perfect kind of vacation. It's it's one of these man, it would have been great and amazing to visit Rome back in those days in the 50s, like
Mm.
back when it wasn't just completely overrun by tourists. Of course, to visit it you have to be a tourist yourself. I recognize that, but still, it would have been amazing. And I think what you mentioned when you said they don't end up together in the end, I think that's so important for this movie, and again so important to the idea of a vacation. This isn't them living unrealistically. It's a pause. It's a break on their lives, and then they're back to reality.
Yeah, Audrey Hepburn was just the epitome of elegance in this
Yeah.
movie. Like I was just spellbound by her every time she was on screen. And, it's one of the reasons I love doing this podcast is that it fills in the holes that I have in my, I didn't grow up in the 50s, so some things just
I
pass me
did.
by and there isn't enough
I'm not
time.
that old.
I wasn't implying that you were, but I'm just saying that this was a movie that not of my time, and sometimes you just don't get around to watching these classics, and that's why I love having these conversations with you because it fills in those holes that a quote unquote film buff should know. So yeah, I was really glad you entered this into the list here. The
Yeah, I will say one thing. Obviously, this has now become such a huge trope. Like, would Netflix have any Christmas movies if not for this movie? How
or
many of
Hallmark,
their
yeah.
like damn princess and princes who like, slum it with the commoners things? Like, there's so many of those damn movies now. Um, and this is just a million times better than than any of them. And I think it speaks to obviously Dalton Trumbo is writing, Audrey Hepburn, Gregory Peck is fantastic as well, actually. Just like, yeah, just a really well-made film.
Yeah, just like you said, it really paved the way for the rom-com formula that we have with like the Hallmark movies, Disney movies, Netflix movies. Yeah, it's been done over and over and over, but this seems like it was fresh at the time at least.
Because it is a calm part of that too. Like it is a really funny movie in parts
Hmm.
I found.
Yeah, it was what such a great character moment early on with Audrey Hepburn taking her shoe off and trying to slip it back on under her skirt and just
Yeah,
kind of being all awkward, and that really tells you a lot about the character without her saying anything while she's going through all this pomp and circumstance of being a European princess.
exactly.
And Peck totally has range, going from this kind of Weasley opportunist to the pinnacle of morality as Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird. Good for him.
Yeah.
The one of my favorite parts of this movie and the funniest I think was the barroom brawl. There was so much going on. A guy gets thrown overboard the boat, but Hepburn throws a lifesaver out immediately to make sure he doesn't drown. The guy with the beard gets his beard pulled on, but knocks the guy out. The Italian guy takes the time to comb his hair before coming to the rescue, and then the band starts playing. It totally devolves into like a late '90s wrestling match with people getting hit over the head with folding chairs and guitars. It's
Yeah,
great
Audrey
stuff.
Hepburn may have brains a guy with a guitar.
Yeah. And then the one of the following scenes after they get out of the water, Hepburn and Peck, two dripping wet, literally very desirable stars at the time, must have been a turn on for an entire generation.
Yeah, probably. I mean, back in the 50s, of course, all they do is share a pretty chaste
Hmm.
kiss. But yeah, at the time, it must have been, ooh, wow, that's sexy stuff.
I thought it was weird that after all this, Audrey Hepburn still refused the milk and crackers. Like, if people are bringing you milk and crackers for free to go to bed, man, I'm not refusing that shit. But I think the character of Irving got totally boned here overall. He got beat up on the boat, made fun of for having a beard, got all the great shots of Hepburn and
Yeah,
Peck, and he was
couldn't
left with
even
fuck
use
all at
them.
the end.
Yeah. Yeah, she didn't even fall in love with him.
No. But yeah, I'm definitely glad that this is in my brain now. And I can say I watched Roman Holiday.
And now for a totally different kind of movie. We're jumping to Midsommar. Um, which is a 2019 film by Ari Aster, an A24 film. For anybody who wants to learn more about A24, check out. We did a whole podcast on the production company, distribution company A24, and all the great things they're doing for small and medium-sized kind of independent movies. This movie stars Florence Pugh, Jack Rayner, Will Poulter, and William Jackson Harper. You know, A24 darling Will Poulter just chewing up the scenery as always.
Mm,
Like, oh man, he's great.
hmm.
Um, the thing that sets this movie apart from a lot of other movies, or it set it apart as at the time as something original, is that it's a horror movie set almost entirely in daylight. Like all the horror takes place in bright daylight in open fields. Um, and it's such a slow burn. You
Hmm.
know, there's a little bit of a scene at the beginning, kind of the backstory of Florence Pugh's character, but it's such a slow burn because it's not until an hour in that we really get anything kind of horror like. You know, there are a lot of sort of weird things happening. For anybody who hasn't seen it, basically, it's they're kind of college age people, and one of them is from Sweden, and he invites the rest of his friends to go to Sweden to participate in kind of his community's midsummer festival, which only happens once, kind of a generation. Um, and a couple of the characters are anthropologists, and so they really want to study this. They're studying kind of, well, one guy steals the other guy's idea in kind of a dick move. But anyway, and as the movie goes along, it becomes increasingly clear that this isn't just all flowers and dancing
Mushrooms,
and
yeah.
yeah, and a lot of a lot of weird substances they're consuming. but so it's scary. It's not jump scare scary.
Mhm.
It's just scary in the way that you never know what anybody's gonna do or what their motivations are or what's happening or just like Florence Pugh's character, who's the main character, we don't understand anything about what's going on in this movie. And that's the scary part. And it's sort of a I mean, obviously it's kind of taking a dark side of it, but it's somebody experiencing a new culture and not knowing anything about it and just kind of blindly going along. And yeah, in this case, it does not go well for basically any of them. What are your thoughts on Midsommar?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not filled with jump scares. It's a lot more sophisticated than that, and that's been kind of Ari Aster, the writer director's penchant. And yeah, I just had to look it up really quick because both Fighting with My Family and Midsummer came out in the same year,
Oh
and
wow.
so both starring Florence Pugh.
Yeah.
And so my first introduction was Florence Pugh was Fighting with My Family, the where she plays Paige the wrestler.
Yeah.
And so after that I was hooked because she was just so charismatic. So I saw that Ari Aster was directing this, Florence Pugh was starring. I was like, okay, yep, I'm in, let's go. And I remember just being floored in the theater for a multitude of
Well,
reasons.
such a
And
different role for Florence Pugh. Holy shit.
yeah, talk about range. I mean,
Yeah.
she's gonna be one of the best for 30 or 40 years to come because she's not one of those that's her while she is very pretty, her beauty doesn't define her. She's not
Yeah.
one of those
Yeah.
because she's her talent is paramount above all. So yeah, all daylight horror movie, fantastic. God, the trauma that this character went through in the first 10-15 minutes was just I'd never seen anything like that on screen where her entire family is killed in such a fucked up and brutal way and so visceral that it
Yeah.
really
Kind of a
this
murder
movie
suicide type thing.
yeah
Yeah.
this movie really gets its hooks into you character wise and then just drags you through and you are so on Florence Pugh's side at that point that she could do no wrong and while she does wind up doing some pretty fucked up shit towards the end you're like yay, yes, yes, Queen Slay at that point. And yeah, Will Poulter chewing up scenery as kind of the ugly American, even
Yeah.
though Will Poulter is British, but yeah, just the villains,
Pissing on ancestors' trees and stuff
yeah,
like that.
but the villains in this one, in air quotes, are pretty justified and in the right. Like ugly Americans on vacation, beware. Like, take some time to recognize the culture that you're in before you go pissing on graves
Yeah.
and infiltrating sacred temples that they explicitly warned you not to go inside of. Like, this all could have been avoided. I,
Well, or could it though? Because not too many spoilers, but they did need sacrifices,
hmm
no matter what. So,
Yeah, but still, while or the blood eagling someone wasn't necessarily justified. One of the most brutal forms of execution you could possibly
yeah,
imagine.
yeah.
Uh,
I always thought of that as more Roman than Swedish, but Swedish people do have that Viking ancestry. They were pretty brutal.
yeah, but so many layers. It runs, I think, 2 hours and 40 minutes or something like that, but it does not seem that long because there's just so many good character interactions. It sucks you into their culture and really makes you feel like you're there.
Yeah.
And yeah, great, great film. One of my favorite horror movies.
Yeah, I agree. I generally I probably mentioned this before, but I'm not a big fan of the horror genre in general. And mostly it's because I find a lot of them are just so predictable and the
Mm,
same sort of thing over and over again. I do enjoy a good horror if it's original,
hmm
and this is original.
100%. And then doing a whole 180 again. I know most of you, if you're watching this episode, you've been expecting this one, and of course, it's National Lampoon's Vacation.
Holiday Road. That's about as far as we could probably go without getting flagged for copyright infringement. But yeah.
All right, so yeah, 1983 comedy starring Chevy Chase and Beverly D'Angelo with minor roles for John Candy, supermodel Christine Brinkley, and Eugene Levy, who I never realized was in this movie until I watched it this time.
I totally forgot about that too. Yeah.
Written by John Hughes and directed by Harold Ramis, two 80s comedy legends, to say the least. Introduced the world to Clark W. Griswold and family. So the hapless dad, Clark, is seeking connection with his wife and his teen son and daughter. The Griswolds embark on a journey from Chicago to Wally World, a theme park in Southern California. Both hijinks and antics ensue. It was a critical and commercial success and spawned a series of sequels, spin-offs, and a remake to varying degrees of quality.
Yeah.
So yeah, Vacation.
Yeah, I've probably seen Christmas Vacation a number of times, but I probably had not rewatched this since, I don't know, for years and years and years. Like I definitely didn't see it when it first came out, but it's been a long time. And so I didn't remember a lot of the ins and outs of this. Like, yeah, I'd totally forgotten that Eugene Levy was in it as a shady car salesman at the beginning. I didn't remember that very young Jane Krakowski was in it as the young cousin of of the the family's kids. Um, and but this is still like this movie kind of sets the template. Obviously, there had been road trip movies before this, but I think this movie is the template for disastrous family road trip movies.
Hmm.
Like it just anything that could possibly go wrong goes wrong. And this is Chevy Chase, who as he's apparently by all accounts a bit of a dick away from, but this was Chevy Chase at the peak of his powers. Like just he could play bumbling, but also kind of well-meaning, but also like just his anger pops up and he does all these things so well. And this is a perfect movie example of it. Um, I think yeah, one of see, after having seen Christmas Vacation a number of times in this, the formula is similar, especially at the end, where like at the end of Christmas Vacation, it's his boss
Mm-hmm.
that gets kidnapped, and then he ends up sort of forgiving him, and everything's all right. In this one, it's the owner of Wally World who kind of forgives them, and everything's all right at the end because he sees, oh no, Clark's just trying to do something nice for his family. Um, but yeah, this is just a classic through and through, even though I haven't seen it in so many years. And again, it's 1980, what, three? And I think, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I think this was the second movie that National Lampoon did after Animal House. Um, and Animal House obviously was a big hit, and so they were like, "Oh, okay, we could do." And then this, um, I don't think they ever quite reached the heights of those first two movies again, but yeah, fun, just fun stuff. And we could not do a podcast about vacation movies without the original Vacation.
Of course. Yeah, I have a couple of personal anecdotes about this film.
Mm.
My second cousin actually roomed with Chevy Chase in the early 70s
No way.
before he was even on SNL. And this is secondhand, but apparently he was even a dick back then. So it wasn't fame that turned him into who he was, although I'm sure that exacerbated
Yeah,
it.
probably.
Um, my first car was a station wagon, and it was named the Griswold Mobile.
Nice. I love it.
And so Wally World is actually Magic Mountain in real life, Six Flags Magic
Yeah.
Mountain in Valencia, California, which I grew up going to. I've been to that theme park more than any other I've been to by far. It has some of the greatest coasters, greatest rides ever built. Like it's always pushing the boundaries of like fastest, tallest, best hanging ride, all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
And so the Screaming Mimi, which they all throw up on, is actually called Colossus, and it's one of the first um steel coasters in America, actually, because it was all wood before then. So they
Oh
had to
yeah, of course.
they had to dismantle it, reassemble it. But the last coaster they ride is Revolution, and it's the first one in America to have the loop to loop. And so every time I see this movie, I'm just waiting to get to the end where I'm just so nostalgic because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was going to Magic Mountain when I was like 6, 7 years old, and I go there every time I'm out there. So yeah,
Yeah,
and but yeah, couldn't do this without that film.
yeah, absolutely. All right, and then the final movie we're going to talk about is a more recent one. It's Forgetting Sarah Marshall. So this is a 2008 movie from Jason Segel, directed by Nicholas Stoller. This it was written by Segel, and it stars him, Kristen Bell, Mila Kunis, and Russell Brand. This was his first writing credit, Jason Segel, and it's just, especially for his first movie. Obviously, he had a a career. It's 2008, so it's still early in his career, but he had done a bunch of movies, a bunch of TV shows and stuff by this point. It's such a just a really funny, tightly crafted romantic comedy that it's pretty amazing this was his first movie. uh, in my opinion, the best part about this movie are all the great characters. And that's
Hmm.
what makes this movie work. I mean, not only the four leads that I mentioned, but it's aided by a bunch of great acting performances in secondary roles from people like Paul Rudd, Bill Hader, Jonah Hill, Jack McBrayer, just like all these great little characters who all just pop on the screen and are so funny, and just all the different interactions and moments. Um, and look, as vacation movies go, we've talked about a lot of disastrous vacations on this list. This is the best case scenario
Oh,
in
hell
terms of a
yeah.
vacation, right?
Hell yeah.
A guy goes on vacation to escape his problems, ends up getting over a horrible breakup, and meets the love of his life. It can't get any better than that. And so that's probably why this is a good movie to end on.
Yeah, as you said, the script is so tight. It tells us all we need to know about the main characters in a 3 minute Access Hollywood segment.
Yeah.
And Mila Kunis kind of plays the manic pixie dream girl, but in a more realistic way than kind of just like dropping in and playing like the 500 Days of Summer type thing. And God, man, both Kristen Bell and Mila Kunis are just at the top of their game in this
Yes.
one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, yeah, Jason Segel probably having the time of his life. Here, get to shoot in Hawaii, make out with Kristen Bell and Mila Kunis. Yeah, yeah. If he's sitting down writing that script, like, good for him to speaking that into
Yeah.
existence.
Well, I mean, Kristen Bell, it's great for her that she's kind of a villain in this,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, of course.
Um, and that's great. I mean, she's just one of the most charming actresses of the last 20 years, I think. But more often than not, she's kind of playing the hero or the star.
Hmm.
I was a huge fan of Veronica Mars back in the day. Um, but in this one, she's playing totally against type for, kind of I mean, not that Veronica Mars was a sweet, innocent character, but kind of against type as the villain. And so it's a great performance by her in this as well.
Yeah, and yeah, God, Russell Brand was so fucking hilarious in this movie,
He was just so ridiculous.
but also pretty, kind of realistic for that type of pop star that's just so surrounded by yes men and making all these what would you say, like woke uh but virtue signaling songs that don't really mean anything, but
Yeah, yeah.
he just wants to be liked by the establishment. Like, I love even, yeah, the very beginning in that Access Hollywood segment, the song "We Gotta Do Something," like, no specifics, nothing. But it's
No,
just like,
no.
and I love that. What was it? Billy Bush at the end was like
Yeah.
the great delivery of the line.
Yeah.
Yes, I hope this time we can all listen.
Yeah, listen to this really important message of do something. Yeah, it's great stuff. It's so well written. And his songs are absurd. And then the interaction between him and Jonah Hill's character is so funny, obviously, that it spawned a sequel of sorts, Get Him to the Greek, which wasn't as good a movie. But just it just goes to show the interaction between Russell Brand, who's he's not one of the two main stars, or he's kind of second tier. He's one of the bigger
Mhm.
stars, but and a secondary character. That's how good the character work in this movie was. That was enough to convince some studio that, oh, we should make an entire other movie about this interaction. That's pretty cool. That's
Yeah,
great character work.
there's this weird parallel universe where Russell Brand still plays Aldous Snow, but Jonah Hill's not playing the character that he played in Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, so Get Him to the Greek. I love that movie as well, just because it showcases Aldous Snow, and I he's Russell Brand's undergone a lot of controversy, so I don't think they're going to bring that character back anytime soon.
Yeah, no,
But
unlikely.
And comedy movies are the hardest to create the alchemy with the actors and the material.
Yeah.
And as you said at the top when you were introducing this movie, this cast was perfect from top to bottom. Everybody played their part and played it to the utmost of their abilities.
Yeah. And again, I mean, you've got people who have done lead stuff on their own and been fan like, well, Paul Rudd, obviously. I mean, Paul Rudd is just at some point we should do a whole Paul Rudd thing because the guy is just he's so great. Bill Hader is
Hmm.
one of the funniest men alive today. And then yeah, Jack McBrayer, who's kind of one note, like he kind of does the same thing in a lot of his, but it's still such a funny character that he plays. It's just yeah, it's this movie is, you know, maybe not as classic or great a movie as something like Stand By Me or Midsommar or Roman Holiday, but it's for what it is, it's a fantastic vacation movie.
And it especially checks off all the boxes that we were looking for when we were constructing this podcast as well. So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, and I forgot about the fake trailer at the end with Jason Bateman in the credits. That killed me. I completely forgot that was a post credit or a mid credit scene where he's doing the trailer with Kristen Bell is like the blind the blind
Well,
detective.
yeah, and even throughout, like all the little clips from the show that Kristen Bell is her character, Sarah Marshall is on, like at the time,
Can
it's
you
so
say
funny.
can you say Dixicle? That was fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, just like the most ludicrous sexual innuendos and everything with, yeah, obviously like a CSI Miami type. It's so good.
Yeah, yeah, this is a fun one. And so yeah, those are the 10 films we're going to cover.
Yeah, great one to end on.
Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did recording it. And do that thing, click those buttons down there.
Yes, please do. And thank you for everyone who's increasingly watching and listening to us. And yeah, let's get more interaction so we can keep reaching more people.
And all hail the robot overlords.
Yeah, because eventually they're just going to take over and rule us all.
So next up, we're gonna have the second annual Unsolicited Film Reviews Box Office Summer Draft, which is where if you guys we weren't on YouTube yet, so if you guys are just watching this for the first time, what Martin and I do is we're each gonna pick our top five films that we think are gonna do the best at the box office over the course of the summer from Memorial Day to Labor Day, and it'll be a contest that'll take place throughout the summer, and we'll see who wins in the end.
And
Martin,
I should be holding a championship belt right now because I am the defending champion.
yeah, Martin
Uh,
kicked my ass last year.
yeah, even though we didn't do a snake draft, I'm still gonna have to. But we'll have to see if I can convince you to do snake draft this year, or if we just go pick again. In any case, it's a lot of fun and just trying to predict what the movies are going to look like. Last year, I won it mostly on the strength of Inside Out 2,
Mm.
which was just a monster fucking hit and bigger than I think either of us really expected, even though it was the movie I took first. I still didn't expect it to be that big. So there's always going to be surprises. You never know.
Yep. So tune in, and for those of you going on summer vacation, enjoy, and we'll see you next time on the Unsolicited Film Reviews podcast.
Bye, everyone.